last form is our sphere. And for the sphere, my light source, I will have come from this direction there. So again, remember we need to erase away where the light is coming from in all of our highlights. So I'm going to put the light in there. And for a sphere, there's a highlight that's really strong on one side. And sometimes I like to, for people that have never done a sphere before, tell you to kind of create like a little cheating curved line for where your highlight is going to be. And you're going to erase all of those the area where the highlight's going to be. Because it's a sphere, that light kind of shines around on that rounded surface. So I'm going to erase that away. And you need a little bit of a highlight on the opposite side where the shadow, the cast shadow will be. And that's a highlight as well. For a sphere, you really want to think about the cross contours of this object as well. And there's going to be a little bit of a crescent moon shadow that goes across the side of the sphere in that crescent moon shape, which represents where there's no light. So I am going to start putting in my shadows with probably about a number 4 value to start with. And I'm going to want to blend this value into that 3 value that we put down first. So on the other side of that shadow, I'm going to do a lighter value that needs to blend into the value that we already have on our page. And then as I go across the sphere, I'm going to gradually get darker on the other side, and I'm going to keep working along those cross contours in that crescent moon shape. So as I'm getting to the hind end of my sphere, I'm going to start getting progressively darker because there would be no light on the opposite side of the sphere. And so on this hind end, it should be pretty dark, about a 5 or a 6 in value. And go right up against where that edge of the sphere you're drawing of that circle is. And make sure that you have that range of values from darkest to the lighter value. So that's my first shadow that I'm going to put down. And I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant about this value because I really want that gradual change to happen, and we need that darker value that sweeps across the sphere. For the cast shadow of a sphere is elliptical in shape, and it needs to start from the very south pole part of the sphere, and it's going to be an ellipse. Like this. That way the sphere could roll off of the surface that we're creating. And you want to keep a little bit of a highlight in between the 2 dark values. So I'm going to be very careful about putting in that thin highlight and leaving it, and then starting with about a 5 value or a 6 in value as far as the darkness. I'm going to go really, really dark on the end of the cast shadow, and then slowly fill in my ellipse, but getting lighter in value as I go across that cast shadow space. So over here, it should go back to my 3. So you should see the illusion start to happen now. All right, so I am going to need to also decide which part of my surface or my background is going to be darker in value. And I think for this one, I'll have my surface be a little bit darker. So I am going to put down some value on this, on the bottom part of that line. Which means that my shadow is going to need to be a little bit darker. And on the other side over here, I'm going to put some value in. And remember, we want to try to get rid of those lines that we drew. All right, so when I blend on my surface, I want to start with the lightest areas first, and then go towards the darker parts of that surface, so that the value that's going to be carried across in my blending tool doesn't mess up the work that I've already done. Now, if you notice that like my shadow kind of went away, I'm gonna need to get much darker with my shadow, and I probably need to lighten up my surface as well. So I'm gonna do that also. So where this got a little dark, I'll push that value a little bit back, make it not so dark. And then on my shadow, I'll make it much darker. So remember, you're trying to do that push and pull between the values that you need down there. All right, on the actual sphere, I'm going to blend, and I'm going to need to make sure that I start on the lightest side, and where that line is, where the highlight is, I'm going to blend into that highlight so that it's a gradual change from that very bright light into where the shadows are starting to happen on the sphere. And I'm going to just keep working into that crescent moon, and you should have a gradual change from that lighter value into the darker values. And always start on the lightest side and go towards the darker side. because you can definitely get the darker parts darker, but it's harder to get those lighter parts lighter when you need it to be light. So make sure you blend that well. We're always working toward getting rid of the pencil lines. So I'm going to push the shadow on my sphere a little bit darker. All the way around on that far edge, just to increase that illusion of roundness. For the background, I do need to have a little bit of a change in value back there, but I'm not going to have a whole lot. I just want to represent that the light is going away and to give a little bit of a contrast to the background. So up here where I had that pencil line still, I'm going to blend some value down, not a whole lot. And then mostly I'm going to rely on my blending tool to blend that value from the highlight of the light source and smooth out the background. So it's back to that 3 value and then going into this 4 value that I put in the background shadow behind the sphere. So check your drawings and make sure you have enough contrast between different areas. Make sure that you have a strong cast shadow, that your highlights make sense, and that they're also strong. And that you have gotten rid of your pencil lines from your drawing.